Hi everyone, my name's Rob Farley, in case you don't know me. Please visit the sponsors, of course. I'm gesturing at the screen to be able to make it clear that I don't have slides. Hopefully you read that in my bio. I see a huge number of people who were at my workshop yesterday. Yeah, I think you've all learned to stay away, except for the few at the front who are overly enthusiastic fans, hoping that I get volunteers up to be able to do things. It's not quite how it's going to work today. So this is a session that I've done as keynotes before at conferences because it's not actually technical at all. It's a career-focused talk that I make a bit lighthearted, but I try and make some poignant points. Points are good to be poignant. That's why the words are so similar, I think. But I hope that in some ways you'll think about these points that I make, especially the next time you see the movies that I'm going to talk about. And the reason I don't have slides is because of copyright law. Because if I show you some movie poster and it's being recorded, there's always that doubt that it's going to be considered okay by some copyright lawyer. So what I want to do is I want to talk about some of my favorite movies, and some other movies too, but some of my favorite movies and how I think they relate to the life of a data professional. Because the way that I see movies is that it's as close as we really get in the Western world to having a mythology of our own, right? You look at ancient cultures like the Greeks and the Romans and so on, and they had their stories that they would tell. Those stories that would get passed down from generation to generation. Certainly in Australia with Indigenous people from there, there's the oral history of things. And what I see is that the stories that people talk about in the Western world are the movies and TV shows and things like that. So let me tell you all about the script of Endgame. No, I'm not quite going to go there. I figure that there'll be some people in the room who haven't seen the new Avengers movie. The idea is not to have spoilers, except for the except for the fact that I am going to talk about the plot of some old movies. If you haven't seen them, I apologize profusely. I think the newest film that I'm going to talk about is from about 2004. So I figure the spoiler-free time period has gone past by now, and we get to talk about them. If they're not movies you've seen, I apologize. I hope that I will explain enough about the film, each one, to be able to have you get the gist. I've been told that one of them has a different title here, so I'll mention that. But that's not one of my main movies that I want to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the movie Big with Tom Hanks, which is actually a story about a data professional who wants to deal with big data. And he wishes on a machine that he wants to deal with big data, and the next morning he wakes up and he's dealing with big data. And he finds actually that it's not all it's cracked up to be. And he starts to try and find out how he can get his career back to dealing just with regular data. And eventually at the end of the movie, sure, that's how it ends. And you get some nice scenes with him dancing along the piano and so on. I'm not going to talk about that. But that's probably the kind of tone that I'm going for. I'm also not going to talk about Highlander, which is the movie that you know as Immortals. I'm not going to try and say the Polish word. It's the one with Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert, and the swords and the heads coming off, and Queen doing the soundtrack, and the slogan, "There can be only one." So clearly it's about primary keys. That's what it's about. There can be only one. I figure it's either that or the accounting department who doesn't want to approve the high availability system because they just don't want to spend money on a second server. They say there can be only one. That's where I think Highlander totally fits into our world as data professionals. I'm not talking about them. But the first movie that I want to talk about is the one that I think for as long as IMDb has been around, the Internet Movie Database. See, it's data relevant. No, as long as IMDb has been around, I think has been the #1 ranked movie across that time. Anybody know what that movie is? Anybody know? Unless I told you yesterday. The movie Shawshank Redemption, starring Tim Robbins, who's even taller than I am, and mysteriously is in Top Gun as the guy who's sitting behind little Tom Cruise, and he's the replacement for Goose in Top Gun. You see all the people celebrating at the end, and there's this really tall guy who you really can't see the top of his head. That's Tim Robbins. It's very strange. He's in the Shawshank Redemption. He's the main guy. And what I worked out recently was that the Shawshank Redemption is not about a prison. It feels like it's about a prison. Even the title of it, the Shawshank Redemption, it's about how the prison gets redeemed in some way. How it gets saved from being a prison, being a place that someone's trapped, and so on. And as I thought about this, I thought, it's actually about that job that I hated, that I tried to get out of, that I kept applying to places to get out of this predicament that I was in, and I would go and have an interview and they'd say, no, denied, and I would have to stay in the job that I was in until the next chance that I came up against the parole board. I mean, the interview panel at the place that I wanted to go to. You all can think of that job that you hated. I envy those of you who don't remember a job that you hated, but I'm sure you all, many of you at least, do remember having a job that you just wanted to get out of. It didn't suit you, you wanted out. It felt like it was a prison sentence. And in the Shawshank Redemption, there's some clues about how to save yourself from this situation. What he does is he works for the benefit of the place that he's in. Right? He stops being just grumpy and I don't want to be here, I'm going to apply to get out, no, and so on. He says, you know what, I'm going to work for the benefit of this place. He tells the guards how to save on their taxes. He starts helping people with, setting up a library and so on. He actually builds community even within the prison. He starts working for the absolute benefit, the pure, honest, not with some ulterior motive, until you find out that he's screwing the boss over. But that's work for the benefit of the place that you're at, with a pure motive just to benefit them. Demonstrate your expertise. Work out your niche where you can be an expert and carve that out. Just like the hero in the movie carves out his escape route with a little pickaxe. You can carve out your niche, which can become your escape route. There's a few subtle messages that come through as well. Don't be scared of what actually life is going to be like when you get out. Don't get out and just find that you can't cope because, oh my goodness, you've been jaded so badly from it. Get out and be the person that was working for the benefit of the place that you hated. Right? It's a prison movie, but it's totally about you and where you're at. Right? I love the fact that he builds community. Another movie which is all about community is the one that we're not supposed to talk about. Rule 1, don't talk about it. Second rule, really, don't talk about it. See rule 1. Right? You know the film I'm talking about, don't you? I'm talking about it. It's Fight Club. There are other rules, of course. But clearly they are talking about it because they get fight clubs up all around the world, just like the sequel community, where we do talk about it. The thing is that at the start of the movie, what's he doing? He's hugging a fat guy called Bob, right? Our hero, you've all seen Fight Club? Yes, cool. I was just curious, who's seen Shawshank Redemption? Most of you? Excellent. This is a good sign. There's one towards the end that I might not get such a good response on, but honestly. But at the start of the movie, he's hugging a fat guy called Bob. As somebody whose name is Robert, I worry about that a bit. But I go by Rob, not Bob, so hopefully I'm not too fat yet, depending on which way the camera's pointing. He's hugging a fat guy called Bob in a support group. He's worked out that actually support groups are what he needs, what he wants, what he needs to be able to feel normal. And he becomes addicted to going to support groups, whether they're relevant to him or not. Right? Now, the significance of this for the film is that he was going to the wrong sort of support groups, and what he actually does in forming these fight clubs is to create support groups that actually help him hone what it is to be a man. Right? The SQL Server community is where you can hone your skills as a data professional. Do you see, it's totally about being in the SQL Server community, being in the data community. Fight Club. Talk about it. Don't actually hit each other, please. We've got the president of PASS in the back. I'm pretty sure that there's something in the rules about actually hitting each other at PASS meetings. But still, the point of it is to be able to come along and actually, get involved in discussions with people, to bump heads with people, not in an argumentative way necessarily, but to be able to actually discover yourself. The community that they set up in Fight Club is a bunch of guys who know themselves better, right? Please don't tell your community members to harm you in any way if you decide to leave. Please, that's not really recommended, especially not in my groups. But understand the value of community and see that that we all need support groups. It's not just for the people that are, alcoholics or dealing with grief or whatever the case may be. We all need community. That new DBA who is trying to establish themselves, they need to be able to step up and get involved in community. Interestingly, the people that benefit the most from Fight Club are the ones who fight. Yeah? You with me? The ones who fight are the ones who benefit the most out of Fight Club. If you just go along to community and you just sit there, no reflection on all of you, if you go to a Fight Club and you just sit there, you don't get the benefit. If you go to a SQL community and you just sit there, you don't get nearly as much out of it as if you push yourself to be able to start presenting, to be able to share your expertise, to be able to establish your own profile as somebody who is significant in some way, somebody who actually has had to put themselves out there, who's had to be able to get feedback, even if they say, oh my goodness, what was that, as you're all probably going to write. Right? I've already seen one person get up and leave, and I thank you for the rest of you for staying. No pressure though. But the people that get the most out of it present. If you're presenting, you have no choice but to hone your skills. If you're presenting, you're opening yourself up to criticism. You're opening yourself up to establishing your profile. And the benefit from that is huge. You can hear stories from people in the community over and over and over again about how things just changed when they started presenting. You speak to anybody who's been presenting for a few years, and they're just going, yeah, I'm now a very different person to what I was back then. I think of my own career, and actually that was how I carved the niche to get out of that job that I didn't enjoy. I started going along to a SQL community, user group. I started to help out. I started to present. And at some point, they asked me to start running the group. And I got used to presenting, and I presented at other conferences and so on, and pretty soon people were asking me to do work for them, and I got out of that job. I had carved my niche. I had honed my skills. I had put myself up for abuse from other professionals and held my ground. And that gave me the out, right? The community, it's a hard crowd to put yourself up in front of. They will throw punches and it will hurt, right? I hate the days when I have to read feedback and people just go, it hurts. It really does. And I think about Fight Club and I just go, it's designed to hurt. It helps because it hurts. Because I'm prepared to put myself out there, I'm not most speakers. You don't have to be most speakers. You can be. It's better than just being an audience member. But honestly, get out there, start presenting. Let yourself be hit. I need to not touch my mouth and therefore the mic. The next movie that I want to talk about is about startups, where you see the passionate guy who's funding it, who's really excited about the tech that they're using, who's impressed the investors, who sees that actually there's potential, they're gonna change the world, they're gonna make a fortune. And it comes undone because the IT guy is a bit jaded, isn't really behind the idea, figures that he can benefit from it in his own way, and eventually gets eaten by a Dilophosaurus. This one, In Jurassic Park, you see Richard Attenborough's character, and he's just, let me show you. And he's excited, and he's passionate, and he's funding this thing. And the investors come, and they're just like, we're going to make a fortune. Oh my goodness. And you've already seen the scenes where the IT guy is going, I know how to steal the stuff. I know how to ruin it. This is going to be good. He's going to make some money. The amount that he's making is nothing compared to what that place is going to be worth. Right? He had the opportunity. The guy played by Wayne Knight, Newman from Seinfeld. Wayne Knight, what a more Batman name can you get? And yet this character is such an anti-hero. He's the IT guy who has the potential to be able to look at the situation and go, you know what, I can protect you from this and this and this. We can make this so protected against Grant's SQL injection. We can make sure that this place is secure, make sure that it has a future, make sure that it's going to work for us. And instead what he does is that he's the cause for downfall, right? You don't even have to try. You just have to not try and be the reason why that venture that you're involved with fails. Why not get behind that place that you're in? Why not see the potential, if only? Why not take some responsibility, stand up and be part of the solution? You see him thinking that he's got all the power. You see him thinking that he's going to be the one who makes a difference, but the difference that he's going to make is he's going to cause it to fail. It doesn't end well for him. And I get that you're not about to be eaten by a dinosaur, but the impact that you can have needs to be positive. Can you imagine how that movie ends if it's not for that guy? The investors come in, he's there making sure that everything is working, they make an absolute fortune, and I'm thinking that at that point the IT guy's getting some shares They're probably all getting some amount, which is going to be significantly more than the measly amount that he gets for hiding the eggs in the shaving cream can and sneaking them off, in case that had all worked out. Look at the opportunities that you have. Look at the things that you can do to make other people's dreams work for them so that you're valuable in that place, right? Can you imagine the job offers that would be coming for the IT guy who made Jurassic Park work rather than the one who made it fail? If you are making a difference where you are, that is good for you. The job offer that comes next is better than the one that you're in. Look, you might have an amazing job, by all means. I might be preaching to the converted here. But there are times that you will feel jaded. There are times that you will feel, oh my goodness, what's the point? They just don't get it. I'm underappreciated here. I'm underpaid here, and so on. And the thing that you can do is to say, yeah, but I don't want to be that guy Newman from Seinfeld in Jurassic Park who rips down this amazing startup. You can be the guy who actually says, you know what? I'm going to be the bigger person here, and I'm going to make it work. Right? Because ultimately, this is the kind of behavior that sets you up for the future. Right? It's really easy to find yourself in a situation and then bring to mind movies. Remember? Like it's our mythology. It's the things that we talk about. I can talk about Jurassic Park and find that you all... Okay, who hasn't seen Jurassic Park? Oh, wow. Oh, no, the first one. There's only one Jurassic Park. Look, I know there are sequels. I get that. We're not here to talk about sequels. Right? We're here to talk about movies. One Jurassic Park. That's the one we're talking about. The last movie I'm talking about has a sequel as well, and I just go, oh, but it was such a perfect movie the first time. It's not The Matrix. Oh, seriously. I was tempted to talk about The Matrix. I thought, well. I did think about Terminator. You've all seen Terminator? Yeah. The first one, of course. I feel like the story almost gets ruined by the later ones because the concepts of time travel kind of get a bit mixed in the later movies and so on. I like the first one. It was one of the only movies that Arnie was a bad guy the whole film, as opposed to potentially being a bad guy that turned. I'm not actually talking about Terminator, largely because the whole concept of the way that the machines became smart with AI systems and so on, not just being trained to solve particular questions, trained models that then came, but actually, have become sentient and sit around conference tables, obviously, where somebody clearly comes up with the idea of, I know what we should do. We should invent time travel and go back in time and kill that guy's mother. I remember the last time I made this suggestion in a meeting, and it didn't go down so well. Clearly, the machines think differently to the... Maybe it's just not worth thinking about the meeting that must have happened before Terminator or after in time. The meeting, the premise of the thing, saying the machines have decided that what they need to do is go back in time and kill Sarah Connor. Because surely the rest of them sit around and just go, sorry, Barry, what? How sentient are they to think it was a good idea to just go, oh, let's invent time travel? And surely there's better ways. Why don't they just go, hey, let's invent time travel, and then go back and make the machine smarter earlier? I don't know. Let's just not think about the premise of movies too much. I just think it's kind of interesting. I had thought at some point when preparing this talk the first time I did it that maybe Terminator would be a good one to talk about, and I very quickly would say, actually, no. It doesn't work. It's just... So that's not one of the ones I want to talk about. I do want to talk about my two favorite movies. These are the two that are coming next. I have two movies that are my absolute favorites that I have on my phone most of the time, just in case I want to watch them again. I tweeted about one of them actually just a few minutes ago before the session started. It's the movie where the screenplay is written by William Goldman, who won the Oscar for the screenplay for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The movie is, well, the title of the book is The Princess Bride, S. Morgenstern's classic tale of true love and high adventure, brackets, the good parts version. Who's seen The Princess Bride? Smaller numbers. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Marcin. It's a really good film. You totally should watch it. What happens in The Princess Bride is that it's set in a time after Paris but before Europe, and no one really knows what time it's set in. And it's pirates and it's sword fights and it's a story of revenge and nostalgia and all kinds of things like this. It's got so many classic lines in it, and it's just a beautiful film. It's rated PG. My kids grew up on it too. But at no point should you go, okay, but it's called The Princess Bride. I think it's probably a bit girly. It's not that film. It's got Andre the Giant in it, for crying out loud. It's a marvelous film. At the start of it, I'm going to give a few spoilers. I apologize for those of you who haven't seen it, and for both of you that have, you'll understand where I'm going with this. In the film, Peter Falk, who's the guy from Columbo, is reading a story to his grandson who's sick in bed, and he's reading sections and he's skipping through because it's the good parts version. He skips through a few pages and so on. When you read the book, you find out that actually that's reminiscent of the relationship that the author had with his father, that he's trying to have with his son. It's just in the book. It's not real life. The actual guy, William Goldman, who wrote it, didn't have children. But it's just part of his story. Because he's trying to tell the story about nostalgia. He's trying to say, look, you have storytelling where the grandfather or the father reading to the son or grandson is sharing an experience, telling a story. It's creating a bond between them. It's communicating in a way which is deeper than telling them to go to bed and telling them to wash their hands before dinner and all of those kinds of things. It's a different kind of experience as he's reading a story to them. And the story itself is one where the farm boy goes off to discover the world, and the woman that he loves gets betrothed as the princess bride to the local ruler. And people come and try and kidnap her. And there's quotes in it like, inconceivable, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. These beautiful lines. And there's a scene where the kidnappers are being pursued by the man in black, who is the farm boy who has gone away and become the pirate, the Dread Pirate Roberts, and is now pursuing them. And they refer to him as the man in black. And he's climbing up the cliffs of insanity, and they're trying to chop the rope down but the swordsman, Inigo Montoya, says he wants to fight him with a sword because he thinks it's too cheap to just cut the rope and let him fall. And he says, here, I'll help you up. And he says, no, you won't, you'll just let me fall, says the man in black. And Inigo Montoya says, no, I swear on the life of my father, Domenico Montoya, that you'll reach the top. And the man in black looks up at him and says, throw me the rope. And he helps him up. It had been chopped before. He was holding onto the cliff. They have a sword fight. But first they sit and talk. And you get the back plot that says that Inigo Montoya is on a lifelong quest to avenge his father's death at the hands of the six-fingered man. His father was a sword maker who had been commissioned by the six-fingered man to make a special sword that was especially balanced to suit his six fingers. But when the man had come to pay for and collect the sword, he didn't, and he killed Montoya and scarred his son Inigo, who swore that day that he would avenge his father, that he would find a six-fingered man and say to him, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." There's a great meme around the whole thing of saying, here's a guide to networking. Say your name. Establish expectations. All this kind of stuff. It's beautiful. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. But the man in black reaches the top and they're sitting talking and he says to him, "You don't perchance have 6 fingers on one hand?" And he says, "No, why?" You see, Inigo Montoya wouldn't even recognize the six-fingered man if he saw him. He has to check with the man in black. "Is this you? I'm about to kill you anyway. Is this you?" And straight away you get this glimpse of, oh my goodness, he's pursuing this man his whole life and he doesn't even recognize him. Of course, in the movie, he finds him, and he's fighting him, and he's saying over and over and over, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And it's great if you're at a conference and you've got one of those badges that says, "Hello, my name is," and you write, "Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die," and then you get several of them and you put them down. And the people who know just go, "Aha, I see what you've done there." And you have another one on the other side, "Rob." For the people who don't get it and try and call you Inigo. He finds him and he kills him. But before the six-fingered man dies, he's saying, "What can I give you?" He's saying, "Offer me money." Yes, money. Have it. Offer me power. Whatever you want, it's yours. Just ask. And he says, "I want my father back." I'm quoting, "You son of a bitch." I apologize for the language. I think that's why it's PG and not G. You see, he doesn't actually want revenge. What he wants is his father back. So many people in IT see that they're not keeping up with technology. They want things to go back to how they were. They want to be able to go back to the days when they felt like they knew what they were doing with the latest stuff, before they had things like Data Factory and all of these things, that they just go, at some point, maybe I'll get on, but you know what, I just wish it would go back. Right? I wish it could go back. But nostalgia is not healthy unless it's just to celebrate the past. If you're trying to recreate the past in some way, you don't win in that situation, because what you want is your father back. You're acting out in revenge, but you just actually want things to go back to how they were, to hold on to when things felt good and safe and before whatever it was that took your joy away. And I'm saying you need to look forward instead of backwards. Afterwards, he's talking to the man in black. And he says, "You know, I've been in the revenge business my whole life, and now that it's over, I don't know what I'm going to do." And he says, "You know, have you considered piracy? I think you make a great Dread Pirate Roberts. It's fantastic." But he finds himself aimless, Because he suddenly got the thing that he thought he was pursuing, except that it wasn't what he was pursuing. He was pursuing something else. He was goalless, really. He thought he wanted revenge. It wasn't what he wanted. Another movie that talks about, probably my all-time favorite, another movie that talks about looking to the past is set in a time when the supers have been forced to retire, when their secret identities have become their only identities. You recognize the film? Ellen does. It's The Incredibles. The animated film by Pixar from about 2004. The newest of the ones that I'm talking about. And it's set in a time, Mr. Incredible has accidentally caused damage, and the people have sued the city, and they've forced the people with superpowers to stop using them, to become ordinary people. And Mr. Incredible is frustrated. His kid can run really fast. And he says, why can't we let him out for sports? He'd be great. And Mrs. Incredible's just like, you know he can't do that. That's not how it works. And Bob is frustrated. Another fat guy called Bob. It's not quite the same fat guy who was called Bob who was in Fight Club. He's frustrated. He's got a job in insurance, and he wants to be able to help people, but he just can't. And he goes out with his friend Lucius, and they listen to police scanners, and they go and try and help people because that's what they want. They want to be super, but they're being told they can't be. The system has worked against them, and they can't be who they think they can be. They have ambition to be amazing. They were amazing in the past, but the world has moved on, and now they're just ordinary. And then to make matters worse, syndrome turns up and creates technology to make everyone super. And when everyone's super, no one is. Have you seen The Incredibles? Lots of you could. Go and watch it. It's a great movie. It's funny. It's poignant. You'll see yourself in Mr. Incredible. I promise you. Syndrome says, when everyone's super, no one will be. And I think that's about Power BI. Because as data professionals, we're superheroes, right? We're the ones who know how to look into the data, who know how to be able to get the data out, who know how to be able to communicate that to the customers, to the business. We're the ones who provide business intelligence, because the business is not intelligent by itself. It needs us to be able to provide that. That's our superpower, right? Except that Syndrome's come along and given us Power BI and made everyone super, which means we don't feel that anymore. First time I gave this talk, Matt Mason was sitting in the front, and I was like, you're Syndrome. He disagreed, but he kind of agreed. When I met his wife and said, he's Syndrome, she's like, yeah, he is. Technology comes along and threatens your job. If you painted cars, there's now a robot that does that instead of you. If you were in a factory line and you put bottles onto, lids onto bottles, there's a robot that does that, and you're out of a job, right? I expect that almost all of you, if you're a taxi driver, how long have you got until cars are driving for you? Honestly, I suspect that all of you have told yourself, no, it's fine. I'm different to that. My job's not going to get replaced because I provide benefit to the business. I'm a superhero. And then you see Power BI come along and actually make what you do available to, the accountants, right? I'm sorry if there's any accountants here who come along because they go, I'm learning Power BI. I'm becoming a superhero, and I'm going to go to this event and learn about Power BI. Yeah, you're the one who, your superpowers are not in business intelligence, that's in business. But you've told yourself as a data professional that you're not going to be affected by what happens with technology, right? And then as technology comes along and actually says, actually, no, you're ordinary, your superpowers are not significant to us, and you find yourself sitting in a car listening to police scanners just to be able to try and help people, by all means, keep trying to help people. But at some point, you have that fear, right, of just going, oh, crap. At what point does my job become insignificant because everybody can do what I do because Power BI is so easy to use? Yeah? It's a tad scary, right? Because even though you've told yourself that you won't be affected, actually, you know that you are going to be affected just as much. And this is not just when the machines take over and have board meetings where they make ridiculous suggestions. I'm talking about the fact that the other person who doesn't even get data like you do suddenly has the ability to do what you were doing. That's scary, right? The great thing in the movie is the fact that when the giant robot attacks the city, the technology doesn't cut it. The technology is good. It helps. The family of the Incredibles uses the technology to be able to help beat the giant robot. But they know what it is to be super. They know the important things. They know the teamwork. They know the things that they need to do to make sure that the technology can be effective. So I want to reassure you that you are super. You can go and get your super suit. It's for the greater good. You can get your super suit. You can be the superhero. You can use the technology yourself, but you understand things that they don't. You understand about data quality. You understand about management of the data. You understand all kinds of things. You understand DevOps and all of these things that make the difference between you as a data professional doing what you can do and the stuff that the accountant does, where he might have a really good business knowledge, but he doesn't quite get data in the same kind of way. You can empower those people and be still super. You need to establish your superpowers and feel assured that you still stay, the syndrome is wrong, you still stay super, even if everybody else has some amount of superpowers. You use that technology, you are still better with data than what they are. There may come a time when the gap between the significance that you add feels less than what the significance of the technology adds, but you're still adding something because you're different. You're the ones that are involved in community. You're the ones who hone your skills. You're the ones who have understood that you work for the benefit of the place that you're in. That you shouldn't be pulling down, that you should be building up and making more secure. That you're not looking back at the time before the technology was so good and trying to stop the organization from putting Power BI in, because I'm telling you, if you don't, then someone else will. You are establishing yourself with your profile as Mr. Incredible or as Elastigirl or whatever persona you want to identify as a superhero. You are that superhero. Don't forget that. but make sure that your motivation is not selfish, but for the greater good. I keep wanting to use that line that Frozone's wife says, like, I am your wife. I am the greatest good you are ever going to know. No, you need to fight for the greater good of the organizations that you're in, for the organizations that your peers are in amongst the community. Establishing best practice, establishing security, establishing the adoption of new technology, establishing migrations to the cloud and all of those kinds of things. I mean, there are some amazing technologies out there. Even if I don't think about the business intelligence space, there's tools like Redgate and SentryOne and so on that can make regular people really good at being a DBA. Don't be scared of them. Use them and make yourself stronger. These movies that I've talked about, I get that not all of you have seen all of them. But these movies that I'm talking about are things that people recognize. You recognize them. You may not have recognized The Princess Bride, but you recognize most of the films that I've talked about. You understand how these stories fit into the overall consciousness of society today. The fact that we can talk about Fight Club, or maybe not talk about Fight Club, that's rule one, right? We can talk about movies and the plots of movies and the way that you relate to somebody in a movie, and I'm saying these things and you're recognizing yourself in these situations, right? I want you to develop your narrative, find the things that you relate to, tell stories to people and inspire them, if you've been at all inspired today, but inspire them using the stories that they recognize. In the days of the Romans and Greeks, they would talk about heroes like Icarus and Hercules, and these people that they all recognized because it was part of their storytelling. For us, our storytelling is Hollywood. So find your story, tell your stories in ways that people understand. You can even do the same about understanding about how the roles that you play in your organizations, the fact that actually you can be Syndrome if you want to and say, look, I'm providing technology so that you all can be amazing. I'll actually be Mr. Incredible and use that same technology to be better still. But look, I'm going to make everybody super, right? You can tell these stories yourselves, and you can use data up. And you can understand your role in the context of cinema. There is the party this evening. I hope you all have a terrific time tonight and that you enjoy tomorrow, being our final day here. I have been learning some Polish. So I have learnt the Polish for, I hope you're enjoying SQL Day. Have a terrific week. Let me practice it on you to say goodbye. It's Jesteś piękno kobieto, masz piękne oczy. Thank you, everyone.